What does meaningfulness mean to you?
It means it's something I can live by. It's something I can rely on. It is, I don't want to talk philosophy because that's the last thing, but for me, it is again associated with that which rings true for me, is for me meaningful. But then I've got to be on that honest journey of looking at myself. And when I say me, it's not the me that I made myself to be in order to get through life. It's the true me that one's life journey is there to discover. And we all have it. We're all, created in that living image, and we have to find out who we are in that. Not who life or relationships or other people or circumstances put on us.
Do you have regrets?
Of course. Some of the stuff I've done, I wish I'd never done. But you're not going to push me on that.
Maybe this is where I should ask about telling us about something that few people know about you.
I don't know what few people know about me. Well, I could tell you that I've had the privilege of standing looking, although I was told not to, looking into the eyes of a gorilla mother feeding her baby. I can tell you what my first realization of God was. I didn't grow up in a house where there was prayer or that sort of thing. I was baptized, yes. Can I tell you that one? Because that's an important one for me. You see, I was a pantheist before I was a Christian. And when I lived in Buenos Aires, my father was also accredited to Santiago in Chile, and he had to travel between the two countries. And so one school holiday, he decided he was going to take the family with him. Now, my father prides himself on having driven a motor car in 53 countries, and I think it's probably true. So we had to all pile in the car, and in those days, there was an unmade gravel road that you had to travel over the Andes Mountains to get to the other side, to the Pacific Ocean. And the taxis from Chile that were ferreting people across to the Argentine would come racing up that crooked road up and over the mountain. And that was a hazardous trip, I'll tell you. My knee here was bruised because my mother just pressed on it all the time like this. And I had to get out and help my father around the corners like this. And then we got to the very top and we stopped. And that was at the foot of Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in the Andes. And I got out of the car and I left them and I walked towards it and looked up at these rocky cliffs. It was an awesome place. And when I say awesome, not the way the kids use it today, it filled me with awe. And as I was looking, a huge condor came out and flew around like this and hovered over me. Now, they have a 3-meter wingspan. It was just hanging there like that. And I looked at this bird and I thought there must be a God. So that was the beginning of my realization of Godness.
When I asked Denise apropos of this to elucidate on her spirituality, she reversed the question and first wanted to know what spirituality meant to me. Thus ensued a wonderful conversation during which she shared some valuable insights and advice.
Thank you. That helps me a lot to know, because you asked me about my spirituality, and I want to try and speak about it in terms that will be... I need to tell a quick story. I was living in Pretoria, and I went and attended a talk at the Irene Convent, and I cannot tell you why, but I went and attended a talk there. The man who gave the talk was about 4'10", little. He had one gammy leg. He had a big white beard, pink cheeks and very blue eyes. and his name was Francis Cull. And he talked about spirituality, and he talked about finding somebody with whom you shared your prayer life. And I listened to him, and when the talk was finished, I walked up to him. I said, "Will you be that person for me?" I'm afraid that's Denise. Anyway. And he said yes. At that time, he was living in Johannesburg. He was the spiritual director of Desmond Tutu, who was then Bishop of Johannesburg. And I lived in Pretoria, and I used to drive across and used to have sessions with him. Barely a year later, Desmond was sent down here as Archbishop, and he brought Francis down with him. A year later, this is part of our history, my husband left the bench, and we came down here. And I applied for a job at UWC, because I'd been teaching at Unisa. I applied for a job at UWC, and the job got frozen. So I was jobless. And then out of the blue, I was offered a job at the newly formed Center for Christian Spirituality, which was created by Francis Cull and Desmond Tutu, with the object, in Desmond's words, he said to us, now don't forget, this is in the terrible 80s, eh? He said, if we can get the clergy back at prayer, we'll save the day. Wow. Okay. And so Francis and I, and Sergio Melandri and Don, I can't really say. Anyway, there were 3 of us in it. And we traveled all over southern Africa. If there was time, I would tell you the stories of being right up in the north of Mozambique, or walking into Angola with a guide who took me through where there were no landmines, because I said I wanted to be in Angola when I was working up in the north of Namibia, and the people I met and so on. It was a journey of 3 years that had to do with prayer. How was I praying? How could I teach anybody anything about prayer? What has prayer really been? And when we weren't traveling, we were at Bishop's Court, and we used to have communion with Desmond, and that's where my profound friendship with him developed. And he became a very important friend of mine. Then I've told you already that I then decided to go on to do the spiritual exercises of Ignatius and to go on this month-long retreat. And that was also very shaping of my spirituality. When I came back, I had prayed to God when I was there, what do you want me to do with all of this? And nothing happened. So I just went back into academic life. The post was unfrozen. I went to teach at UWC for 10 years and so on. But, yeah, the phone started to ring. And people said, are you doing spiritual direction? Can I come and see you? And so, in a way, without my seeking it, I ended up in giving it and in training people for it. I've done some of it with Marie Brandt from the Moederkerk, and Mags Blackie, a Catholic, and Judy Everingham, a Anglican. And so, but the development of my spirituality has probably been more Ignatian than anything else. In other words, very simply, it teaches you to find God in all things. The next big step is to trust God in all things. So often people here, they say to me, oh, so you're religious? Because they hear, my name is up down there as doctor, then they ask me what I am, and they say, oh, so you're religious? And I say, no, I'm not religious. And by the way, I'm definitely not religious, not in the way people understand it. They say, oh, I thought you believed in God. I said, yes, I believe in God, but even more than that, I'm attempting to trust God. And that brings them up short, because there's such a lot wrong in our world today. There's so much evil, so much violence, so much terror. I mean, what is going on in Ukraine? What is going on in our own country? Our own,
GBV, yeah.
Our own, what is he called? Director General of the Treasury says we're approaching being a failed state. And I think that's true, and so on. So all of this that I've loved. And by the way, my ancestors were the earliest Huguenots here. 1684.
Wow.
They came on a ship called the Vryheid with two brothers with tickets that they got from the Dutch East India Company. And so my background to my spirituality is reformed, is probably shaped also by my ancestral history, but Ignatius was a deeply Catholic person. So, I mean, I'm a mixture of everything that you can possibly imagine. But I find in Ignatius great truths that have guided my life. And now that I can't see, I can still do spiritual direction because I can hear. So I can still see people. I can still interact with people. And that's a great joy. I need to perhaps say it because this is deeply part of my faith journey. And that is that for over, it's like I never get dates right, but let's say 55 years, I've done Bible study almost without interruption every week with groups of women. Right here on a Thursday at 9 o'clock, there are about, well, it varies, but at max 12 women around my dining room table. And I know that it wasn't just the reading of the word, but it was the discussions around the word. Because when I first was introduced to Bible study, I went purely by accident. You see, this is God at work. I went to have coffee with a friend. And she said, I can't have coffee with you, I'm going to Bible study. And when I did it a second time, because I'd forgotten, she said, you've forgotten I go to Bible study. I said, Bible study? What do you do? Can you smoke? Do you wear hats? It didn't make any sense. She said, no, it's not like that. And I went with her because I was curious. And after 2 years at Bible study, I said to God one day, if you are what I read in this book, show me. The most reluctant, ungracious conversion speech I think is possible to make. And God did show me. So for me, the scriptures are important. And I don't think that is just an academic statement.
Yes.
Because I'm not a biblical scholar.
Yes,
okay.
I understand.
All right.
Yes, I understand the difference.
Now, secondly, conversations with God. You see, the kind of conversation you had with me now, you're really talking about yourself. You're talking to yourself in a way, yes. Now, there's no reason why you can't talk to God in that way. But it's not just asking God. It's also, you see, when you learn to accuse God without being afraid, you can lament.
Yes, I get it. Yes.
You can lament.
Yes.
And in my first book, not the one you mentioned, The Letters to a Landscape of Faith, I wrote a whole chapter on lament. I spent 4 years of my life examining lament.
It's a beautiful word.
Because there's so much to lament. And it's honest speech to God. Ons draai nie doekies om nie. We're not making it pretty.
You talk about lamenting that retreat. Now then when
Did
you
I?
said it,
I forgot.
I know it comes back.
Yeah.
I love that word. Yes. You know, Denise, I think I am talking to God maybe more than I realize.
I think you are, yes.
I think I am, yes.
Yes, but I mean, you can name it, you can say it.
Yes.
You see, I think the church, by and large, for this recording, I'm not going to get stuck on church. But there's too much pretty talk. Life is not pretty.
No, I agree with you.
The hardness of life. There's a woman I heard of this morning who has 3 children sitting at home, all sniffing glue because they're not at school. And she hasn't got a job, and her husband hasn't got a job. And so she gets 1,000 odd rand a month, and she's got to feed them all. Now, what does that mean? Where are you, God, in all of this?
Denise, a 6-month-old baby being raped. I mean, that I can't.
I
can't even try and go there. I can't because I feel I can't handle it.
Yeah. And I'm afraid then I get murderous.
Denise, do you think about death?
Yes.
How do you think about death?
Firstly, I think there's more rubbish written about death than anything else, and mostly theological rubbish, by the way. When I hear the stuff that is preached in some churches, I hold my breath. What do we know? We know nothing. What do we hope for? That's different. And all I can say about death is that I hope that this means that I shall be in what I can only describe as God's reality. And I can say nothing more than that.
Are you afraid to die?
I guess there are times when I have fear of the process of dying, yes. I'm not good with pain and all of that sort of thing. And my beloved Arch, that's another part of my life, he also believed that human beings should not be left to suffer. So it's not that, because I know that I will make arrangements for that, but it's the processes of it. It's I don't know. I do, of course, you think about it quite a lot at my age. But I don't think I'm desperately afraid of it, no. I'm sure I have moments, and there are moments when I wish I wouldn't. I could last a little longer because I'd like to see this grandchild do this, and this one's boyfriend turn into what I'm hoping he's going to turn into, or whatever, you know. And so I don't know if that answers your question. It's a mixture. But I think generally I'm okay, thank you.
Talk to me about your children and your grandchildren and the role they play in your life.
My children and my grandchildren are my precious family. When Laurie and I got married, we'd been married about 2 years. We thought we'd start a family, but I lost babies. I lost 3 of them, and there didn't seem to be any hope that we would have our own. So our eldest child is actually our adopted child, and we adopted her when she was 8 days old. And she is now, she'll be 60 this year. And it's been a lesson in life. There's lots that you can learn from all of that. And I would prefer not to say too much about it, but she is today the most loving and unselfish person you could want to meet, and has been a great, great help to me, to us, to both of us. And then, miraculously, I had a baby, and our son was born, which was a total miracle. And I think that when he was put in my arms, it's probably the most profound sense of joy I think I probably had it up till then, certainly in my life. And and then I lost a perfect little boy again, another one at 6 months. And then miraculously, our youngest daughter came along, conceived, and I had her, and she's fine. So we have girl, boy, girl.
You're an accomplished author, academic, scholar. Is there anything that you'd still like to achieve, or anything you'd still like to do?
Well, what I'm trying to do now, with the fading sight, is just to finish on my computer something I've written for my children. I've written about my life for them. And it's a battle against time. So that's what I really would like to finish. I enjoy writing. I'd like to do that. I guess for the rest, I would like to do what I have to still do here. Quite a lot of things now entail my care for Laurie, and being a granny and being a mom, and just to do my bit to the best of my ability. I guess that's really all. I don't have any more practical ambitions. I mean, there are many places I would still like to travel to, but I can't travel anymore because there's no point in traveling if you can't see. So Yeah, I won't travel anymore. I thank God that I enjoy music. That's a great sustaining thing for me. And that I can now do Audible.
Thank you. Thank you. I know Carmen probably also wants to ask you a
With a
question
pleasure.
or two.
So the first one, that's just for curiosity. You said there's no need for traveling when you can't see. And I was actually wondering, like, how does it sound? How does it sound differently? Also aware that you actually lose some of your ability to hear finer detail when you age. So how do you experience that, if you can give me a peek?
I think it's both my ears and my fingers that have come into the fore since my eyesight is gone. Because I find now I can peel a pawpaw without being able to see it, because I can feel it. Because if you peeled fruit all your life, your fingers remember and you know how to do it. I can hear the birds. I was a bird watcher, and I can't watch birds anymore, but I can hear them. And that is a source of great joy. I can hear your questions clearly, although I can't see your face. So at least I can interact with you. And I also think that that's one of the better things for me, is that I can actually still have lots of meaningful conversations with people. I find that some of my friends here who are losing their hearing are getting more and more cut off. Yes, they have far greater independence than I have. They're driving their cars around and they can go to the shops and so on, which I can't do. But I'm able to hear what they can't hear, and I'm able to participate in meaningful relationships through conversation, through talking like we have today, which you can't do if you're really very deaf. So I think deafness has its terrible liabilities. I think you're cut off, but blindness you lose your freedom. And let me assure you, if I've had one theme in my life that has kept me going, it was my desire for my freedom. And that comes out of a childhood with a very tough dad and so on. Yeah. And so you have to get used to it. It's just things I can't do.
And for intrasake touch, are you more aware of that? Does it feel different?
Very well aware. It's become extremely acute. I mean, if I want to find the earrings I want to wear, I have to feel them. I can't see them, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And so I'm incredibly grateful that my hands are not too bad, they're not over arthritic or anything, that I can use them in that sense. And so as the one thing goes, you sort of begin to discover the other. I think that's what you're asking me.
Yeah.
And we human beings learn to compensate. We've had to do it. I mean, that's what survival, that's what Darwin is about. I mean, in a way, that's why we are here now. We have learned to adjust, to compensate, to make up for this and that and the other, yeah.
Do you think with age comes, well, after being through serious stages in your life, being driven by thoughts, do you enter a phase of more childlikeness or more, you mentioned joy, or not necessarily?
Well, maybe in the sense that when your life becomes more circumscribed, your movements are very much more restricted. You either have to learn to find joy in what's around you. I mean, for instance, the guinea fowl here in my garden, they've had babies. Now they're stray cats that are killing the babies.
Oh, no.
So now you see, if you want to see Denise get wound up, you've got to see me with the stray cats. But it's given me I love the guinea fowl here. And then they fight with the hardy-daws, and it's very funny to watch. And then the Hadidas fight with the Egyptian geese. So there's those small, silly pleasures around, not necessarily silly, and most important of all, my joy in creation. I can still walk out here and see the outline of the mountain, and I'm grateful for that. And I can still, my March lily is flowering, I can still see that. And so I'm grateful for, it's the small everyday things now that are causes for gratitude and for satisfaction. I have a deep inward sense that if we just allow God to take it over, all of it, there is a strange something that happens. It's like a line that our lives follow, that God knows about, and it'll be okay. And it's that it'll be okay that you hang on to. Otherwise, I don't know what the point of faith is. So I believe that whatever is coming, I must learn perhaps more gratitude, more giving of myself than I have before, or whatever. I'm open to it. But let's hope I'll hear the inner messages. It's okay to hear the birds, but it's the inner stuff that is happening that we have to hear too. I don't know what to do with it. I think my kids have got some of them. You see, I'm really interested in your questions from your age, in what you're curious about at your age, and it's different from what you're curious at with your age and your experience or mine, and so that's what makes conversation across the ages so fruitful,
yes,
and meaningful,
yes.
And it's not just when I ask my granddaughters, what does woke mean? And then they laugh at me and tell me. But it's also when one talks about the things that matter to them and see, the choices that they're making. And so I love conversation across generations. It's marvelously rich. I feel sorry for one or two friends I have who don't have any grandchildren, because they have been an absolute joy to me, and I'm so proud of them all. They're all doing marvelous things and trying hard against the odds. And it's not that they haven't had their share of suffering. I've noticed some of them have been through really tough times. But I'm a proud grandmother.
We hope you enjoyed episode 2. Should you wish to further reflect on this interview, you can download notes from our website www.envia.org.za.